Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. And Jim, we are days away from training camp. I am days away from calling you with sweat dripping down my face, trying to discuss story ideas and how we want to follow up on different news topics and happenings at Grant Park and Westfield. But in the meantime, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm thinking about that. I like picturing myself having those conversations and nice air conditioned and
see.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
podcast already getting off to the wrong start.
Well, I was gonna say, it's gonna be combative, as we know. We're gonna do some rankings here, and I'm gonna tell you where you're wrong, obviously, and people will agree with me, and so yeah, that'll be great. So
fair enough. So of course we appreciate Jim making some time for me and you all listening when it comes to the James Boyd Podcast. On this episode, we're going to do basically an audio version of a recent story that got published this morning, actually in The Athletic, where I was ranking my top 10 most indispensable Colts, and we split it up offense and defense. So 1 through 5 offense, 1 through 5 defense. And I think to kick things off, Jim, as much as we want to debate things, as much as we love arguing and butting heads on different topics, hey, your leads got to be stronger. Your kickers got to be changed. We're not exactly going to be changing. That's for those listening. Kicker does not mean place kicker. That means kicker at the end of the story. Lead does not mean lead in the game. It means like the lead into the story, just journalism jargon. Nonetheless, number one on the list, no ifs, ands, or buts, has to be Daniel Jones. And so I think that a lot is at stake for him, not just from a money standpoint. He's already got paid, but from a career standpoint for him and the team. But beyond that, Jim, from a team perspective, I do think that his value is paramount, not only because he's a quarterback, but because of the quarterbacks behind him. So where do you kind of fall in the Daniel Jones needs to be the Daniel Jones we saw for this to amount to anything this season?
So I'll say this. Okay, so I've never believed that the Daniel Jones we saw last year was like, that's who he is now guy. Like, I think that was like a heightened version, and he was playing exceptionally well. And not to take credit away. I mean, like, he earned it. Him and Shane Steichen clearly had great rapport and all that stuff. But I guess what I would say is as a trying to make things Colts fans feel a little better about this situation is that I don't think he needs to be that good because they were historically good offense. I remember you and I were laughing. They were compared to like that. It was the '07 Patriots. Like that's the only other team that was like scoring at the rate and being the efficiency. Like remember they were a perfect in the like there's like red zone opportunities were all converted into touchdowns.
Yeah, like they didn't pump for like 2 games or something like that.
It was insane. Like, you don't need to be that good and that efficient. It's nice when you are. It's fun to watch as a Colts fan, but I don't think they have to be that good to, like, he doesn't have to be as good as he was in those first, like, 8 to 9 games of the season last year for the Colts to be successful. He just needs to be maybe like 80% of that, 85% of that, assuming the defense is as good as is good, I should say, and everybody else, the run game is taken care of and all that stuff. Like, so I think that's like the optimistic view of this, but here's what I was going to ask you. I don't have any, obviously, no debate. It's the quarterback. He's the starting quarterback. He had to be number one. Boring as it may sound, like he is the number one guy here. My question for you is like 17-game season. Actually, and I say this because Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals, did a version of this story that I found really interesting too, and I might make you try this next year.
Okay.
Well, he essentially assigned his own like WAR, which is typically a baseball stat. It's like wins above replacement. So it's essentially comparing that guy to what the average would be. So he had like Joe Burrow as like a 4, like at least in football terms, he had him as like 4 WAR, which essentially what he was saying was if the Bengals played 17 games all without Joe Burrow, they'd be 4 wins worse.
Right. Okay.
So my question is, where would you think, we don't have to do this for every player because I think it's the most important at quarterback, but like if you had 17 games of not Daniel Jones. I mean, I want to say Riley Leonard because I'm just assuming Anthony Richardson is not going to either play or be on this team by September.
Which
Maybe I'm
is
wrong.
fair.
But
I mean,
yeah, but we'll just assume it's Riley Leonard. Like, I don't. If you think the Colts, I don't know if you think the Colts are a 10-win team. Maybe you do. Maybe you think they're a 9-win team. My question is like, how many wins do you actually think not having Daniel? Like, if he tears his ACL in training camp, God forbid, but he tears his ACL in training camp again or something, how many wins worse do you think the Colts are? Assuming like everyone else mostly stays healthy.
yeah. So I think I had them going 9-8 and like
Okay.
barely missing the playoffs without Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I think they're going. Oof. I think they're going like 4-13.
Oh wow. Okay, that's a lot. I was gonna say six wins, but that's fair.
I think that I think
No.
that Riley would get eaten alive
Okay.
with defenses like keying in on him and making him make all the throws. And like, I get that Shane is an outstanding offensive mind.
Mm.
And we actually had Warren Sharp on from like Sharp Football Analysis on our radio
Yeah.
show earlier this week. Kevin
Most
on 175
underrated.
The Fan.
Most underrated schemer or what's it
Yeah,
called?
that's basically what he
Yeah.
said. Shane, like he was
Yeah.
a most underrated like play scripter. Like, and you
Scripter,
noticed,
that's
and
what
you
it is.
noticed it, I'm sure because you pretty much watch all the Colts games like I do, Jim. Their first drives are always amazing. Like they pretty
Always.
much always score, and I would even say the majority of the time they get a touchdown. No matter
Yep.
who the quarterback is, it's what happens after that. And I think when they get off script, I'm not sure if I trust Riley to just help this team get back on script or to be good enough to really beat you. It's a lot to put on him, and I'll say that, and people might like push back and roll their eyes, but remember, we're talking about a 6th-round quarterback.
Hmm.
We're not talking about a 3rd-round, 2nd-round guy who presumably you're kind of waiting in the wings to promote to a bigger role.
Right.
A flyer was taken on him because of the athleticism and the leadership and the moxie and stuff like that. And I think he's shown tremendous strides, but not enough for me to sit up here and say that he can close the gap even, I guess, a little bit without Daniel. So, yeah, I think Daniel's probably worth 5 wins if he's your starting quarterback.
I listen. I didn't have it as that many, but I'm not going to fight you on it. I think you're probably right. It's probably between 3 and 5, and either way, I guess it means they're not a playoff contender. It's just a matter
That's
of
the whole point. Yeah.
Right. It's just a matter of where they're picking, and like, I mean, we don't have to go down this road because that's not what this podcast is for. But I do wonder if it's like, I feel like in large part, and you referenced this, I think, in your lead, like in large part, I think Chris Ballard's job was saved because injuries derailed the season.
Yeah.
I do wonder if something like that would happen. Does that save his job again, or is it like, okay, we can't do this anymore? I don't know. We don't have to get down that road. Hopefully, we don't actually have to discuss that. I would like to see the Colts at mostly full health and see how they fare this year. So we can move on to the next guy on your list offensively, Jonathan Taylor. And I will tell you this: I want to let you defend yourself first, but I don't think I have Jonathan Taylor this high, though. You make a compelling argument in the story.
Okay, so let me go first because when you're first, you're always right. So, but I think I had him that high, and I could probably guess where you're going to go, and I'm going to be probably rethinking some things, some shuffling here. I'm always hitting you up for, hey, can you edit this? We'll leave it as is, but I picked JT just because I think that his value is so immense to what the Colts want to do, particularly when it comes to the health of Daniel Jones. So let's say he's 100% clear, but he's not 100% himself. I think there's a difference there and a distinction. You want to make sure that guy is not putting extra stress on his body, on his Achilles by having to run for his life or extend plays. You want to be able to hand the ball off to the guy who over the last couple of years has gone for over 1,400 yards, led league in total touchdowns last year, has been all world, and has quietly kind of built this Hall of Fame career. Mm-hmm. You want him to be there with this team. And if he is not, there's just nothing behind him. I could understand if this were 2023 where he got hurt right after he signed his deal, actually. Or not got hurt, but like he was hurt, signed the deal, came back, got hurt, only played in about 10 or 11 games. They had Zach Moss, and Zach Moss was a veteran at the time. He had a career year, had about 700 yards rushing, and I think 5 touchdowns. That is remarkable. That's great from your backup running back. That's a great season.
For sure.
I don't foresee any of that happening if JT goes down with currently 7th-round pick Seth McGowan and 2025 5th-round pick DJ Giddens duking it out for the backup role. I just can't see those guys stepping in there and giving you that sort of production. So that's why I think that JT is so valuable to this team. And I think his durability over the last couple of years has kind of been taken for granted. Last year, he wasn't even on the injury report ever as a running back, which is remarkable. So that's kind of where I land. But I'm curious to see where you disagree and why you're wrong, quite frankly. But you have the floor.
No, I think I don't. It's not even a knock at Jonathan Taylor. This is maybe just like I can't believe I'm about to say this, like an old school thinking about running backs, which is like, I feel like this thinking about running backs was new school not that long ago, and now it's kind of like old school to think about running backs is like less valuable. I just think that you're right that they don't have a proven depth behind them. Though I will say, like, there are a couple names on the free agent market that I feel like if they really needed to go get like a Miles Sanders, or if you thought like Najee Harris was like healthy again, like, I'm not saying they should go do those things. I'm just saying that like you might be able to get league average play out of the running back. And if your offensive line is as good as I think you and I think it can be, like when you rank the positions, we were, like when we talked it over and you wrote the story, obviously, but when we ranked those positions, like the offensive line was relatively high because we were pretty high on what they could do. So that is why I'm going to say it's not that it's not really a knock on Jonathan Taylor. I will knock Alec Pierce a little. I'm going to bump Quentin Nelson all the way up to number
Quentin
2.
Nelson, a guard, not Bernard Ryman. Oh, I'm actually a little surprised, but I thought you were going to go Bernard.
I think Bernard is a very, very good player, but I do believe that Quentin Nelson is still an elite guard. I think, like, as you mentioned in your story, like he is a huge part of the pass protection plan for Daniel Jones. But I still think in order for this run game to be as effective as it was for the first half of last season,
that's a good point I didn't factor in.
Quentin Nelson is like, he is. I remember Frank Reich used to say that. Like, he's a weapon. Like, they use like it's if they're gonna run left, it's behind Quentin Nelson. If they're gonna run right, it's because they're pulling Quentin Nelson to the right and running behind Quentin Nelson. Like, he is such a focal point of the run game and what they want to do there. So in order for Jonathan Taylor to be as good as you need Jonathan Taylor to be, which again he absolutely belongs on this list. I could argue 3, 4, 5 somewhere in there. I just think Quentin Nelson is such a kind of a skeleton key for the offense of like, he is amazing at everything that he does, both, in terms of a leader, in terms of pass blocking, but really, really in the run game, which I think is where the Colts need to thrive this year. And I think that's how important that he still is to this team. So again, not really knocking Jonathan Taylor, just knocking you for putting Quentin Nelson so far down the list.
Well, I'll argue with you. I don't think an argument with Quentin Nelson would go very well because A, he doesn't talk very much, and B, he could probably whoop your boy pretty easily. Sometimes when I'm out there at practice, Jim, and it's a little inside baseball, I guess inside football to bring it over to our sport, but when I'm standing there and they'll occasionally bring us inside when it like is raining or I don't know, like the grass outside is kind of messed up, whatever the case may be, and we'll stand next to the offensive lineman. As soon as those mammoths get to moving, I'm running. Like, I never realized how close I am until they started, like, coming at me, and I'm like, I got to get to safety. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that any type of, back and forth with someone like Quentin Nelson would end well in my favor. However, since we kind of touched on Bernard Ryman a little bit, I had him higher than Quentin Nelson on my list because he plays left tackle. And I think,
the argument you make is compelling, by the way. I'm going to give you this one. Like, I could definitely see why, given where Daniel Jones is, why you did this. I'll cut you off, but yeah.
The blind side. That, to me, is the biggest reason why he's on this list. It's just that if Quentin Nelson played left tackle, I put him right above him. Like, I'm not saying Bernard Ryman is a better player than Quentin Nelson, but I do think he might be a little more valuable when it comes to your pass protection. Not overall protection, not overall run game, but Bernard Ryman is a guy you gave a $100 million contract to last year, and I think that he's been like a fringe Pro Bowl type of left tackle. I'm not saying he's going to be that this upcoming season, but I think he's been put it like this. I think he's been, there's 32 teams in the NFL. He's been in the top, I would say 13, 12 range. Like he's been a very good left tackle, especially considering where he was drafted. So again, Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles tear, don't want him running for his life. You want him to feel comfortable back there. You want him to have a sense of normalcy. You can't have him constantly under duress because your left tackles keep getting beat. So I also don't trust the depth behind him. Like, they got some swing tackles that are possibilities. You got people that could possibly step in there, but I think it would take a lot of like kind of reshuffling if he were to get dinged up a little bit. So That's kind of how I was with Bernard Ryman, but I think we touched on it a little bit. And you said you would knock him a little bit more. I'm curious to hear. Rounding out the top 5 that we had was Alec Pierce. I had him 4th on my list.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where you would put him. So to be clear for those listening, to make it easy for you, I had Daniel 1, JT 2, Bernard Ryman 3, Alec Pierce 4, Quentin Nelson 5. I know you did some reshuffling there, but what are your thoughts on Alec Pierce? And was any of this impacted by the thought, will he be 100% available in himself in 2026, considering he also is coming off of left ankle surgery?
So this is, again, I think more of like where, again, I don't disagree with any of the people you put on here. I mean, I no disrespect to, like, I think you could maybe make a case for like Tanner Bortolini, who had an incredibly good season last year, like super underrated season. Mekonsov is, obviously very important to what they do. And then I think Tyler Warren, you and I discussed him, like whether or not he was kind of on the fringe of the list. So, but I think the 5 that you have are right. I just would have bumped Pierce down a few spots, only because this is more of a bet on Shane Steichen, truly. I just think that if he doesn't have Alec Pierce, which he might not, as we're about to find out, if he doesn't have Alec Pierce, I think he's good enough to make the passing game work through Josh Downs and Tyler Warren and maybe Nick Westbrook-Akine for a while. Like, it's not going to be a great passing game, don't get me wrong. I just think that those 2 guys as the number 2 and number 3 in your passing attack are good enough depth-wise that you can move Pierce down a little bit. Don't get me, number 1 receiver, so much gravity he takes in the offense, and he is your deep threat. Like, he is the guy that makes things easier for Josh Downs and for Tyler Warren. And he's if you're not creating explosives with him, you're pretty much only relying on Jonathan Taylor at this point for explosives in your offense, because like that's not really what Josh Downs does. It's not really what Tyler Warren does. You can maybe get a couple out of Nick Westbrook-Akine and maybe Ashton Doolin, but like Alec Pierce is your explosives guy. So he's losing him would be a huge, huge loss for this team. But I do think with their ability to run and then Shane Steichen's ability to scheme up, I think what he could do to mitigate the loss of Alec Pierce for at least a little while, it would be easier to withstand than a guy like Ryman or Nelson. I think like you're dead on it with Ryman. Like the biggest thing with Daniel Jones is the injury right now, and also like he took a ton of sacks when he was with the Giants. The sack percentages were so high, and like it was really good last year, but count on that again. And those things kind of tend to fluctuate, so you want to make sure he's protected. So I mostly would have bumped Quentin Nelson up to like 2, Ryman to 3, and then Taylor, and then Pierce. It's not a huge debate, but I do, like I said, I'm obviously right. And oh yeah, no, with Pierce it's like it's just like he's a hugely important part of the offense, but I think they could survive better without him than they could survive better without these other guys. That's really what
I think you make a compelling argument, which is probably why I appreciate you weighing in when I'm writing several articles throughout my career, and I'm sure there's several more on the way. But the reason why I had Alec probably higher than you is just because I think that what he does is so much harder to replicate than the average receiver, or even just like the average good receiver. He is the best deep threat in the league. He has led the league in receptions or yards per reception in the past 2 years. And it's not really been a close margin. I think he's been probably the only guy over 20 yards in each of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And when you look at like the lack of volume that he had, I mean, the last guy who had, I think, 1,000 yards with less than 50 catches before Alec Pierce did it last year was like Mike Williams in 2019 with the Chargers. And then before that, it was like Deshaun Jackson, who we all know how explosive he was. And that is the era that, or the, I'm sorry, not air, the company that he's in, that rarefied air where you're like, man, that is pretty special stuff. So yes, I think they could survive without him, but I do wonder how much that affects the offense when you don't have that guy who can constantly stretch your defense and just stress you. I actually think that's why Alec is, if he's assuming he's fully healthy, will have a pretty good time, or easy time rather. I don't want to say like too easy, it is the NFL, but an easier time than most when it comes separating underneath is because people are scared to hit him going deep. It's kind of like in basketball where, the gravity of Steph Curry, like you're scared to leave him. So that leads to all these wide open layups by somebody else, or you overplay like the 3-point shot and he just blows by you for a layup. That's kind of how I look at it with Alec, where it's like if you overplay deep and you got 2 safeties deep, then what's to stop him or Shane from saying, okay, well, run 15 yards and just break in and we'll get this chunk game right here versus, hey, just run 40 yards. I think over the last couple of years, I checked True Media, Jim, but I want to say Alec ranks in like the top 3 if he's not number 1 in like go routes.
Yeah, right.
Like that's all he ever ran. I mean, it's like every child's dream is like just go long for your career. So that's why I'm higher on Alec Pierce than most. But hey,
it's fair.
I think that our list, more or less, I didn't feel like I guess around the offense. I didn't feel like I left anyone out that was like truly indispensable when it comes to a top 5 list. There's other players. Tanner Bortolini is very valuable. Tyler Warren's very valuable, et cetera, et cetera. But that's where I landed offensively. But defensively, I'm curious to see how you kind of land on this because to start things off, Mr. Aiello, I had one Laiatu Latu mainly because look, defensive ends are very important to your success in the NFL. James Boyd, circa July 23rd, 2026. Write that down. That's like me and like Mandela giving a bunch of statements and stuff like that. That's like just so prophetic and so profound. The most common sense statement ever. Like, yeah, defensive ends are important. Getting out to the quarterback is important. He's your only real proven starting caliber defensive end, and I just think that without him, your pass rush will look so much different. And on top of that, not to get too into the weeds with it because I want you to read the story, I also think that he has to make a jump if this is going to work because they just didn't get the other guy. Like the big fish this offseason was Trey Hendrickson. They whiffed on him, and now that leaves you with Laiatu Latu with basically it's like Laiatu and the rest. It's kind of how I look at this group.
There's some commenters below who make some compelling arguments for DeForest Buckner. I get
know,
it.
And I'm a DeForest Buckner lover. I call him God's favorite, so.
I think if this was DeForest Buckner of like 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, I would be all aboard. But I don't know if that's the same caliber of player that he is at this point in his career. And so I feel like, as you said, for this defensive line to be as good as they need it to be, Laiatu Latu has to make the jump to what I think he's capable of. Honestly, I think that's the only. I think that's like the most defensible part of putting him number 1, which I agree with. By the way, I do have him also number 1 on my list. Is he is capable of more. He was a splash play generating machine last year with the 3 interceptions, the forced fumble. He had I think 12 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks. It's a good season. He had a really good season. The Colts just need him to have a really great season this year. And as you pointed out, the depth behind him is beyond questionable. I mean, like Arden Key and Michael Clemens, and like they got some guys that will contribute. They will contribute, no doubt. But like, I don't know that you can count on them to be major impact players the way you need Laiatu Latu to be. Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of the argument. There's the 2 parts of it where he can get to another level.
Yeah,
and they don't have anybody else who's even close to that.
You must get to another level.
Yeah, exactly.
We need you to do this.
So if they lost him, I just don't see how they generate pressure. Now, there's a few. I think you wrote a story not that long ago about there's some defensive ends still out there that would maybe help. Like if they signed, I don't even have a good name, but if they signed a solid veteran defensive end,
Joey Bosa, come on down.
Joey Bosa, or I was gonna say, or Von Miller, who is just like, he's the third down specialist. Like you could maybe talk me into moving Latu down a spot or 2 or something like that because they wouldn't have to solely rely on him to generate pressure from the outside. But right now, I mean, Arden Key's had some good moments in his career. I just don't know what you're going to get out of him now. And I think Latu has the chance to be I don't think he's like a 18, 20 sack guy. I don't think he's like that top tier, like game wrecking defensive end. But I do think a good season from him could be somewhere from 12 to 15. And that would be fantastic for the Colts.
Exactly. And honestly, they haven't had a double digit sack guy since 2019. I think you were perhaps not having as many kids as you do now, Jim. The world was different back then. I don't know. Were you even a father in 2019?
No, I got married that year.
Exactly. So the world was different. Lives weren't even here. His kids, your kids, haven't even seen a double-digit Colts sack player. We need to, we need them to see something new here. Okay, we got to establish a new norm in 2026. But I'm curious to see though, who do you have number 2, and do we agree there as well?
I hate to say this, but yes, I do. Again,
well, you have the floor to explain why you have
24-year-old
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah. Wait, how old? No, I'm No, I think you can make a compelling case for DeForest Buckner here if he was the same caliber of player. And maybe I'll eat my words. Maybe he comes back from this neck thing and is the same guy that he was a couple of years ago, and he is the most indispensable player on the Colts, the best player on the Colts. Like he is the best. I think there was a time where he was, if not the best player, certainly the best defender on the Colts. And if they get that player again, look out. Like they can be a very good defense. But right now, I think you have to put like Sauce Gardner is going to be a part of getting Leatu Latu to where he needs to be, and DeForest Buckner, and helping get the most out of Arden Key and Michael Clemens and the other guys on the pass rush. Like you're going to need some coverage sacks. You're just going to need some coverage sacks. You've paid so much money to Sauce Gardner and draft picks and Charvarius Ford and Cam Bynum. It's been a high pick on another safety. Like you've invested a ton in your secondary. You need them to get some coverage sacks for you. Hold on for 4 seconds so that one of these pass rushers can get home. Like that has to be the case. And I know we're talking about indispensable Colts and it's not just like a perception thing, but like Sauce Gardner has to work. This has to work. Like you gave up 2 first-round picks for him. I think everyone agrees it was an overpay. You got over your skis on where you were at that time in the end of the season. Fine. Like we all agree there. But like, can he be worth like a first and a second, and the overpay is just like a little bit? That would be fine. Like I think that like Chris Ballard would take that, right? And I think he can be. Like again, he was an elite corner. He is an elite corner. He just needs to deliver that and stay healthy for a time for the Colts. And I think I loved the way you ended this with like we're gonna see, because he gets Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase. Like we're gonna find out like if this was worth the price. So I think the secondary needs to be excellent this year for the Colts defense to be good enough for this team to make the playoffs, and that starts with Sauce Gardner.
I agree there as well. I think to kind of round out my thoughts on him is you look at like their performance against the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars last few years. They haven't beat the Texans since 2023. They lost 5 straight. You know what's going off in all those games? Nico Collins. So this is where Sauce Gardner needs to step up. And also, I'm just not, again, 100% sure that Charvarius Ward is going to get through the whole season. I would love for him to. I think that he's been through a lot in his career, as we've talked about, as you pointed out, Jim. But Sauce is the big fish. This is the guy who's got to be top dog. And look, if he's great, if Charvarius is great, then you got a bunch of riches at your hands. But that's kind of where I'm at with it and why I had him ranked so high on this list. Number 3 is probably the people's champ, I think, DeForest Buckner, who I nicknamed God's favorite. I mean, born in Hawaii, tall, handsome, plays football, hardly ever got hurt. But unfortunately, he is showing some of the less Superman side. He's coming off the neck surgery, and we still don't really know where he's at in his recovery. We'll get an update, hopefully, from Chris Ballard this upcoming week. But the bottom line is, if he is not the DeForest Buckner game record that we know and love, then this pass rush, this entire defense will not be the same. I don't think this defense can really be elite, especially with the deficiencies you have along the defensive line already, like question marks you already have. You don't want that to be another one, Jim.
I'm worried not only about the neck injury, but like the guy's he's 32.
He's getting up there.
He's played in the league for 10 years. Like this is a long time. Like you cannot expect, and he's a what? I'm looking at it now. 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All Pro. Like his best years are behind him.
Yeah.
Now, does he have like? Is he Calais Campbell? Does he have like? Is he Cam
Longevity,
Jordan? Yeah. It's like, does he have like another special year inside of him? Maybe. I hope so, because like you said, we're not fans or whatever, but like, good dude. Hard not to root for a guy like
great
DeForest
person,
Buckner, man. Like it's just like, and he's fun to watch. When he's at his best, he is really fun to watch. He's very unique, like physical specimen at defensive tackle.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You don't see guys like him very often.
He's like tall and kind of like lean a little bit. Like he's not really like a big dude. Like he's big, like as far as height wise, but like not big as far as like I don't know. Most linemen are. He looks like he's in great freaking shape.
Yeah, well, at 6'7", that's just like exceptionally tall for a defensive tackle, and so I just don't feel like you see guys quite like that. And 6'7", like you said, and not. I mean, I'm looking at his Pro Football Reference, 6'7", not even 300. Now maybe he is, but like 6'7", not even 300 is like it's an odd combination in the NFL, and he's unique. He's special, and watching him play has been really, really fun over the last 7 years in Indianapolis. 6 years, and this is year 7. So if he's got one of those special years in him, he probably jumps up this list. But I don't know that he does. And one of the other guys on this list plays the same position he does. Now they do very different things. And Grover Stewart is not here to be the pass rushing, like pocket pushing, like menace
Right.
up the middle that DeForest Buckner is. But if you did lose DeForest Buckner, you do still have Grover Stewart, who again is not coming off his best season either. But I guess, like I said, the reason I think you can make the case for him to be further down the list than one or two is that they have a little depth behind him, a little depth behind him, and that if they lost him, they could still be a functional defense. I think in large part, again, like we talked about, they have a high quality second, or they should have a high quality secondary, and that should help mitigate things a little bit. But this defense isn't. This isn't a very good defense without a very good DeForest Buckner.
Exactly. And I think you hinted at it right there. I'm curious to see, Jim, rounding out your top five. Give me your last 4 and 5, and I'll see if we're on the same page here.
So I would bump Cam Bynum up a spot ahead of Grover Stewart because I get, much as it pains me, guy I really enjoyed covering when I was covering the Colts, Big Grove. Like, I don't know that he's the same guy that he used to be.
That's fair.
But I do think he'll age okay. Like, I think he is going to be a good run stuffer given his size and acumen at the line of scrimmage. Like, he's really good at what he does. He really is. And I think if he stays healthy and he has DeForest Buckner next to him and they can be that like dynamic duo that they were, I think that, there's a time in not that long ago where they were maybe one of the few best 1-2s at defensive tackle.
I
in the
definitely
NFL.
think that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I think, and they complement each other so well given what they do. So, but obviously, like, he's not a guy that you're going to get much pass rush from. So you're pulling him off the field on third downs and passing situations, typically, especially as he's getting older. So that's the only reason I would have Cam Bynum maybe a spot ahead. Obviously, I think defensive tackle is a more valuable spot than free safety. But I think you need, again, this defense to me we've talked about this. It's not a lot of depth. There are holes on this team, particularly at linebacker, we think. We'll see what happens with these young guys. I'm going to ask you a question about those guys in a minute. So the Colts need to be in the business of creating turnovers and making things easier on the defense, because I don't think that this is going to be a team that just is like the Seahawks, where it's just like, we're going to constrict you, you're not going to move the ball, it's never going to happen. Like, or like the Broncos, we're going to generate 70 sacks in a season. Like, I don't think this defense is built for those things. They're going to need some turnover luck, or luck may be the wrong word. They need the guys who are going to go get the ball.
Playmakers.
And
yeah.
And Cam Bynum is. He's one of those guys who goes and gets the ball, and they need him to do that again this year. He did it well last year. They need him to do it again. So that's the reason I would have him a tick up in this list. But much as I would love to fight you on more of these, I think you have the right list.
Yeah, I had him flip-flop there for my ending. And just real quick on Cam Bynum, he did have a career high 4 interceptions last year, 8 passes defensed. And one of the more underrated things about his game, Jim, and it sounds crazy to say, he catches the interceptions that come to him. Like, how many times do we see guys drop interceptions,
That's a great point.
Possible pick sixes that can change games, change the outcome of your season? He does not drop the gimmies, and I think that's a valuable skill to have. You add that with AJ Halsey, one of the young guys I'm sure you're probably going to ask me about, and I think you might have a pretty dynamic secondary. I just had Grover at 4 over him just because I think that the defensive line as a whole worries me, because I don't feel confident in really any of them being at the peak of their powers outside of like Latu. But like you said, Grover's getting long in the tooth. DeForest coming off the neck surgery. I don't know about the other defensive end spot. Like, I have questions there. I don't have. Well, let me say this. I have questions there, but I trust Grover Stewart probably the most of any of these linemen, because he's done it at a level that's been pretty high, and he doesn't have like the injury concerns or the will he make the jump concern. I mean, he's been who he's been for quite some time now. Whereas looking at Cam Bynum, I think that he definitely deserves a top 5 spot. Can he be flip-flop? Sure, but I had him just a tick behind Grover just because I think the trenches matter a little bit more. But as you say, the ball, taking it away, matters. So I'll give you the floor here to, share any more thoughts that you may have.
I have one thought before I ask you a question, which is I'm looking at this defense and I'm like, well, if things go poorly this season, this could be an entire, like, I was looking at, looking at the our lads, which does a great job with the depth charts. I was looking at the starting defensive lineup for the Colts, and I'm like, there might be 3 guys that are still, maybe 4 guys that are still here next year if things go south. Like, if things go south and they have to like rebuild, Arden Key will be gone, Grover Stewart will be gone, DeForest Buckner will be gone, Akeem Davis Gaither will be gone. I think Charvarius Ward would probably be gone. I think you might see Cam Bynum gone, depending on what they want to pay him the money. And then you're probably talking about Wally, Gardner, Leatu Latu, and CJ Allen and Halsey. So 5 guys. So anyway, it just could be a very young and different looking defense next year if things don't go well this year. It could be anyway, honestly, but I guess it's just another way of saying this is an old defense, and they are.
This is why they got to win now. Like, they're built to win now, so to speak. So we'll see if they can actually deliver.
But that leads me to my next question. So I was just wondering, like, you make this list again next year. I assume that's an exercise we will go through next season. Who are you imagining will not be on the list?
Oh, God. Okay.
On both sides of the ball, and who you imagine will replace them on the list for next year? Just, if you had a guess.
Man, I feel like this could be like a whole like podcast episode. Put me on the spot here. I'm gonna say that
you could do like 1-1 on offense, defense.
I'm gonna say DeForest Buckner's not here next year.
Okay.
And if you got to pick somebody to replace him right now, I mean, I'd have to see like what their depth chart is, their defensive tackle. I know Aditamo Adebawhere's had some nice moments, but they don't really have a lot of depth behind DeForest. But I think there's a possibility that this could be his last year in Indy just because of how much he's getting paid, the injury history. If he gets injured again, it's kind of a no-brainer to let him go. Offensively on this list, dare I say, if you don't take my advice, JT.
Yeah.
Like, is there a possibility he's not here next season? I know he's going into, yes, this is the last year of his contract, so he'll be a free agent next year with the possibility of leaving on his own. And the question that I will have for Chris Ballard and for JT is like, okay, is an extension a non-negotiable? Like, do you have to have that in place before you step on the field, or are you open to playing out your contract and then becoming a free agent at 28 or whatever it is? So, very curious to see how all that plays out, Jim. But
so who are the young guys that take their spots? Like, just guesses. Like on offense, I'm guessing it's between maybe Bortolini and Downs. I'm wondering if you think.
Oh, my most indispensable. I thought you meant like replacing, like who would actually like step in for them. I'm sorry.
Who's on your list? Like, who would take their spot on the list? Do you think?
I think Bortolini definitely center. Okay. You can't go
or
wrong.
Or Warren. I didn't bring up Warren.
Choosing
either.
him. I think Warren. I might be a little safer, but I think Tanner Bortolini at center might be very valuable. Okay. And then defensively,
I think the candidates are. Yeah, Allen, Halsey,
I was going to say, I might throw CJ Allen in there because we haven't talked about the linebackers at all, and they're going underneath a huge overhaul. If you look at every other position group has somebody who's been here before. They don't, at least as far as the starters go. So we'll see. That whole room looks different than it was last year. So I'm sorry I misinterpreted the question, or at least the answer.
But you got halfway there, and then we got the other half, so we're good.
Exactly.
We're good.
So I was thinking of like 1-for-1 player replacement, not most indispensable on the list. But yeah, this could change. This could fluctuate a whole lot. Football is violent, unfortunately. So we're hoping all these guys can stay healthy. But the bottom line is all of them probably will not. And the team has to respond accordingly to that. So hope you had a lot of fun with this exercise. I know Jim and I did when we did it over the phone a few days ago, and now here on the pod. And so the next time we talk to you all, it will be training camp. I'll be out in Westfield. I'll be sweating. I got my bucket hat. I got a brand new one from Dick's Sporting Goods. So until I have a much darker tan, you all enjoy this weekend off, because once we come back, baby, it is football until next year.